The first time Petty Officer Liam Hayes stepped onto the flight deck of the USS Nimitz, he wasn't prepared for the noise, the heat, or the sheer sensory overload that would engulf him. Jets thundered overhead, sailors sprinted between aircraft with disciplined chaos, and below the roar of turbines, there was an eerie mechanical hum he couldn't place. The deck stretched endlessly in both directions, but his eyes were drawn to a rectangular void cut directly into the surface, framed by guardrails and pulsing warning lights. It looked like a gaping wound in the ship's armor. For a moment, Liam froze. "Why is there a giant hole in the middle of the runway?" he asked no one in particular. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, a flight deck veteran with 20 years and 3 deployments under his belt, overheard the question and laughed. A short, barking sound that vanished into the wind. "That," he said, jerking a thumb toward the gap, "is the only reason any of these birds can fly today." To the untrained eye, it made no sense. Carriers were marvels of symmetry, precision, and overwhelming firepower. Why would someone carve out part of the flight deck? The hole was not a design flaw, nor damage from enemy fire. It was deliberate. And yet, no one in boot camp had prepared Liam for the uneasy sight of it. Jets whizzed past mere feet from the edge. Sometimes, when the ship rolled with the swell, it felt as if one misstep could send man or machine tumbling below. Ramirez explained it once, then left Liam to figure the rest out through experience. "Watch the cycle," he said. "You'll see why." Liam did. Every hour, aircraft were lifted from the cavernous hangar bay 2 decks below, emerging through that very opening like something rising from the ocean floor. A mechanical platform, guided by enormous pistons and safety locks, carried each jet into the sun. It was an elevator, but unlike any elevator on Earth. It didn't lift people. It raised 30-ton war machines. As the days passed, Liam's initial awe gave way to a deeper understanding of the rhythms of carrier life. Every operation depended on timing, and that hole was the keystone of it all. Without it, the hangar bay would become a warehouse. The flight deck would become gridlocked. The Navy's strike capabilities, its very deterrence, would stall. His curiosity wasn't satisfied with watching. In off hours, Liam dug through the ship's archives, maintenance logs, and crew records. He discovered that the elevators could lift up to 150,000 pounds and operated with a fail-safe redundancy system. They were controlled from a small room just adjacent to the lift, a bunker of buttons, switches, and sweating sailors who knew that a single mistake could turn the flight deck into a war zone of its own. He spoke with Tyler, a soft-spoken elevator tech whose entire job revolved around making sure the lift platform stayed perfectly level, even as the ship rolled 5 degrees to port. "Everything is moving," Tyler had said. "The sea moves, the ship moves, the people move. But this thing has to stay rock solid. If it fails with a jet on it, we don't get second chances." One stormy evening, Liam witnessed a lift malfunction in real time. A Super Hornet, half laden with munitions, had been scheduled to launch. The elevator rose halfway, then stalled. Sirens blared, operations halted, engineers swarmed like bees, tools in hand, faces drawn tight with urgency. Within 20 minutes, the issue was resolved and the mission resumed. But the memory stuck with him. That moment of failure, that hesitation, could have meant a mission aborted, or worse, a catastrophe. From then on, Liam no longer thought of it as a whole. He began to think of it as the heart of the ship's operations, a window between 2 worlds, the ordered madness above and the coordinated precision below. It was the divide between preparation and action, and it wasn't just about machines. He learned that below decks, hundreds of sailors worked unseen. They fueled aircraft, loaded ordnance, ran diagnostics, all beneath the sunlit chaos above. These were the ship's silent engines, and the elevator was their only voice. One night, Liam stood beside Ramirez again, both of them watching the elevator rise with an F-35B perched on top like a metallic predator. "You were right," Liam said over the howl of the wind. "Without this thing, nothing flies." Ramirez nodded, lighting a cigarette with his wind-blocked hands. "That's the difference between knowing and understanding, kid." As the elevator reached deck level and the jet rolled forward toward the catapult, Liam felt the thrum of engines in his bones. He realized then that what seemed like a vulnerability, an exposed gap in one of the Navy's most valuable assets, was in fact its strength. The ability to move seamlessly between layers of power, to shift warplanes from standby to airborne in minutes, was a feat few truly appreciated. And yet, the story didn't end there. The technology had evolved. Word around the ship was that newer carriers were using electromagnetic lifts, faster and quieter. But the principle remained. Whether hydraulic or magnetic, the whole was still there, still essential. Liam turned away as the jet launched, vanishing into the gray horizon. Tomorrow there would be more flights, more missions, more movement between layers, and more stories rising through the heart of that mighty ship. Below deck, the hum of the aircraft elevator was constant, deep and mechanical, like the breathing of a leviathan. Petty Officer Liam Hayes had grown used to its rhythm, though the stakes it represented never left his mind. In his time aboard the USS Nimitz, he had come to understand that the ship was more than just a floating airstrip. It was a war machine with countless moving parts, and the elevator was one of its most sensitive points. That sensitivity was about to be tested in a way no one anticipated. It started with a briefing. The ship was entering a high-alert exercise zone, simulating a conflict scenario against hypersonic missile threats. To the uninitiated, it was routine, just another drill. But for those in the hangar and the elevator control teams, it meant hours of relentless operation, cycling aircraft between levels with zero margin for delay. Captain Whitaker, a commanding presence who rarely descended below the bridge, visited the control room and made his expectations unmistakably clear. "We move aircraft up in 30 seconds or less. If you can't meet that, you compromise the entire battle group." Tyler, the elevator technician, looked more tired than usual as he relayed the new schedule to Liam. 30 seconds. That's barely enough time to breathe. We'll be racing physics." As the exercise began, the elevator pulsed like clockwork, lifting FA-18 and F-35s in precise succession. Sailors double-checked platforms, ran diagnostics between each cycle, and monitored pressure gauges for any sign of strain. Liam found himself stationed in the mechanical shaft for the first time, a vertical corridor of steel, gears, and hydraulics. It was loud, cramped, and smelled of grease and ozone. But it was also the place where failure would show its face first. The conflict wasn't one of men versus enemies, but of man versus system. The margin for error was razor-thin. As aircraft cycled at a blistering pace, the shaft's main piston began showing signs of thermal fatigue. Tyler caught it first, a fraction of a second lag in the vertical lift motion. On paper, it was insignificant. In practice, it was a whisper of potential disaster. "Flag it," Liam said, alerting the control room. "We can't stop the lifts now," came the response over the headset. "Keep monitoring. Log everything. If it worsens, escalate." They didn't need to wait long. On the 11th cycle, the lift stuttered mid-ascent, sending a vibration through the shaft that caused Tyler's instruments to flicker. A moment of silence fell over the headset network. A collective breath held across the ship. Then came the voice of the bridge. "Report. Status of Elevator 2. Tyler responded with forced calm. "Temporary stall. Reset successful. Continuing operations. Monitoring hydraulic stability." But the truth was more complex. The heat sensors were climbing, and the fail-safe systems were at 80% load. If they passed 90%, the system would automatically lock down. No lift, no launches. For a combat-ready carrier, even in a drill, that was unacceptable. Liam pulled Tyler aside during a rotation change. "How bad is it?" If we push another dozen cycles without cool down, we risk system lockout, Tyler said grimly. And we can't shut it down unless someone upstairs calls it. Liam made a decision then that pushed beyond his normal duties. He ran the math, checked the logs, and rerouted a backup coolant flow, buying them an extra 15 minutes. It was a violation of standard procedure, something he knew could get him court-martialed if things went wrong. But the alternative was watching the ship's air wing stall in the middle of a critical operation. The gamble worked. The platform held. Aircraft continued to launch. On the surface, the drill proceeded without a hiccup. But in the shaft, Liam and Tyler were locked in a silent war with time and temperature, trying to coax the machinery through the most intense workout of its service life. Then the final test came, an emergency launch. A jet that had been grounded for maintenance needed to be airborne in under 2 minutes to intercept a simulated enemy target. There was no time to reroute it through another elevator. All eyes turned to Elevator 2. Liam stood at the base, watching the aircraft roll into position. The system groaned, creaked, then surged upward. It rose with agonizing slowness, the hydraulics straining, coolant pumps whirring like jet engines themselves. For a terrifying second, the platform trembled. Liam held his breath, but the lift locked into place. The jet rolled out hooked, but that protocol didn't account for what was coming. Upstairs, an unexpected directive had landed. Real-time reconnaissance had identified an unauthorized drone swarm nearing the task force's position. It was likely a test, an intelligence probe from a hostile power, but it meant the carrier had to be fully operational. All 4 elevators were needed. Grounding one now would hobble their air response. In the control room, Captain Whitaker stood over the digital elevation display. His voice crackled through the hangar's intercom. "Engineering, report status of Elevator 2. Can we trust it under surge conditions?" Tyler didn't speak. He just looked at Liam. It was the moment. Liam pressed the comm button. "We've got a structural fracture in the piston joint. Recommend temporary shutdown and reinforcement. If we don't—" "Negative," Whitaker interrupted. "Mission readiness requires full elevator function. You have 30 minutes to stabilize it, or I'll have to bring in the emergency team." Liam stared at the fracture, then at the repair tools. 30 minutes. Not enough to fix it, but maybe enough to reinforce it. "We can bracket it," Tyler said, flipping open a toolkit. "Steel clamps. External braces. It'll hold for a few cycles, might buy us a window." Might. They moved like men possessed. Tools sparked against steel. The bracketing process was dangerous, working that close to the pressurized system while hot, but there was no time to cool the shaft or initiate standard safety procedures. Liam held the brace steady as Tyler drilled through tempered metal, sweat stinging his eyes. Around them, the massive machinery felt alive, as if aware of its own fragility. As they locked the final brace, a warning alarm flared through the hangar. The drones were within range. Flight deck orders roared through the intercom. Launch sequence imminent. Liam and Tyler scrambled out of the shaft just as the first F-18 rolled onto Elevator 2. Their reinforced patchwork screamed under pressure, groaning like the ship itself, but held. The platform rose. "Cycle 1 complete," came the report from the control room. Another jet moved forward. The second launch followed, then the third. It was during the 4th cycle that the first sign of failure emerged, a high-pitched whine from one of the bracing clamps. Tyler's head snapped around. "It's slipping!" "Run diagnostics!" Liam shouted over the noise. "No time," Tyler muttered. "We either stop it now or pray it doesn't shear." The jet on the platform waited, locked in, engines spinning. The crew up top had no idea how close they were to disaster. And yet Liam, watching the strain gauge edge into red, said nothing. He couldn't. The platform rose again. It held. Somehow, through brute force and ingenuity, their field repair had survived. The 4th launch cleared the deck. The mission, at least for the moment, was secure. When they finally shut the elevator down for inspection hours later, engineers from the carrier's technical department descended into the shaft and stared at their work with a mix of awe and disbelief. "You held this thing together with clamps and prayer," one of them said. Captain Whitaker joined them soon after. He looked at the fracture, now webbed with heat stress, and then at the two sailors covered in grease and exhaustion. "You saved operational readiness," he said, his tone unreadable. "But you risked a structural collapse." Liam stood straight. "Yes, sir." There was a long silence. Whitaker nodded. "I'll file the report as a mission-critical improvisation. But if this ever happens again, don't fix it. Call it in." "Yes, sir." As the captain walked away, Tyler leaned against the bulkhead and let out a long breath. "That was insane." Liam nodded. "Yeah, but we bought them time." In the world of aircraft carriers, where every system supports hundreds of lives, there are no small fixes. Every bolt, every weld, every improvised decision carries weight. In that moment, Liam understood that trust in machinery was really trust in the people who kept it running. People like him and Tyler, unseen beneath the flight deck, holding together a warship with their hands. The elevator was offline now, awaiting full repair. But it had served when it was needed. And somewhere overhead, jets cut through the sky, powered by the sacrifice of those below.